What's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining us over here at Review Zero Minus. My name is Race, and today we're going to be doing some behind the scenes slash extra nonsense as per usual for Halloween. Specifically the 1978 version, if you didn't watch the video already. But before we go on some long tangents that I'm sure are going to make sure that a lot of you click off on, I'd like to go ahead and thank every single one of you for actually joining us, hanging out with us, and doing all that kind of stuff. You're stuck with me once again, considering that I was the host for that specific video. There are much more talented folks that are going to be doing different reviews, that are going to be sitting down right here in this chair, or maybe in some different places here in the studio, and sharing some of their personal ins and outs and behinds and extras. Not behinds. There's an OnlyFans for that. And if there's not yet, then there should be. Just like little bee butts. just little bee behinds. Because you got to save the bumblebees. It's just one of those. So I guess if we're going to be getting into the knit and grit of what would draw somebody into Halloween, it's probably one of those things that you either watched at a sleepover, or maybe even snuck from one of your older brothers or sisters or cousins or whomever. Heck, maybe even just saw it, late night on TBS or USA or whatever. For me, it was more of a discovery. I was late to the party for Halloween. I didn't start watching the Halloween series until I think it was the Curse of Michael Myers was the first one that I actively sought out and watched, which was not an awesome movie. Definitely not one of the peaks of the series. I mean, it's not bad. It's okay. It's just whatever. I mean, just like what's the adage? Bad sex, cold pizza, they're the same because pizza's pizza and sex is sex. I'm not really a big pizza guy. But even a bad cheeseburger is okay. And even, a bad makeout session is still a makeout session. Whatever. So, I remember... gosh, this must have been, and you're going to have to excuse me because sadly enough, I have to look it up because I forget when it came out. I believe Curse of Michael Myers. Yeah, so Curse of Michael Myers, 95. Okay. So 95. Now I remember 95. 95 was a good year. This movie was one of the main reasons why I was put on blast. I was put on notice by my dad for renting videos at the video store. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, kind of around everywhere, Phoenix was always home base. It's always where my dad was and a lot of my family. So we lived right up the street from this mom and pop video store called Galaxy Video. Funny enough, after Galaxy was open for, they were open for about 10 years. Shout out to Bill and Linda if you guys are still around, still kicking. I have nothing but love and awesome memories of Galaxy. It was very cool. Probably one of the most super 90s video store that there ever was. I mean, you walked in and it had this hardcore, low pile, commercial grade gray carpeting throughout, like that real hard, like woven, like stuff like you get in like a really, really, really cheap like studio apartment. But it had little flecks of turquoise in it. And all the video racks, they were the standard black wire video racks that we all know, the really big ones that go out at that angle. And inside of it was, gray walls and then purple neon everywhere. great layout too. I mean, they had such an awesome collection because they were a privately owned thing and it was just them. They stocked probably the best collection of media that was available in Phoenix at the time. I mean, everybody will maybe compare a few different things, like you know, the big chains like Suncoast and Hollywood and Blockbuster and all that kind of stuff. But here in the Valley, we never really went to those places all that often. It was typically kind of the lamer parents or whomever. They're like, hey, everybody's having a sleepover. Let's order Pizza Hut or Domino's and go to Blockbuster. Yeah, no, we weren't about that. We were. And they closed late too, which was super cool. They were, they opened at like 8 in the morning, and they didn't close until midnight, which was super duper cool. And I just realized that was, super, super gross. Freaking, it's really dry. My skin's super dry, and I got like flakes on my ear. Oh well, there it is. Gonna have to put a pause on that. So there, but by the grace of whomever, there was a there was a delivery that was brought in. So time for a beverage. It's been a long day. So any of you out there watching this, please go ahead, grab yourself something good or bad or whatever, and let's keep trucking on, shall we? So, like I was saying, there was Galaxy Video, and they were awesome. They were open from 8 to midnight, 8 a.m. to midnight every day, except for there was something weird that happened on Tuesdays. I don't really remember. I mean, you'll have to forgive me. This was 30 something years ago. So, it was definitely one of the best places that Phoenix really had to offer. I mean, they had one of the best selections of everything. I mean, that without Galaxy Video, I probably wouldn't have turned into the movie buff. I'm not going to say cinephile. I hate that word. I think I thought it was really cool 20 years ago when I first heard it, but now it just seems kind of pretentious. I'm a cinephile. Yeah, there's a lot of other files that you might be, but Cine is not one of them. Anyway, without Galaxy Video, I wouldn't have seen, or I wouldn't have been exposed to all these great pieces that a lot of us take for granted now that we have streaming and specifically YouTube videos and stuff like our channel Review Zero or some of our other friends like Schlock and Awe, Nerdstalgic, or almost anybody that you can possibly think of who does these video reviews, essays, whatever you'd like to call them. I mean, we're definitely a review channel. We're not a video essay channel. That you're gonna have to go ahead and give. From Dusk Till Shawn, Jordan Fringe, Nerdstalgic, of course, Good Bad Flicks, Cecil Kick Ass. And again, these guys are great. They got it down pat. And if you want to look at some really, really crazy deep dive stuff, I definitely recommend going over there and checking them out. But they do, things that we take for granted, and they pull deep. Oh, Steve Reviews. Steve Reviews is really funny too. I like him. He's he's really funny. But nobody on any of those channels actually shows their face. They have a much better presence as far as presenters and narrators, and man, they have it down. If us over here at Review Zero can get even close to what they're doing, then we'll be doing okay. But you should see the other hosts that we have coming up for you guys. There's a... I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised. And there's a few different channels that we're working with that we're going to be doing some crossover stuff. if any of you got turned on to us because of, excuse me, the taste of mediocrity. If any of you were turned on to us from our good friends over at Schlock and Awe, we did a review a few months ago when I was in Japan. I decided to go ahead and just say nuts to it and take off for a while. So I was over there and bounced around, did this and that, but I was fortunate enough to where when I was there, I got to see a lot of the cool nerdy stuff that most people associate with Japan, specifically Tokyo. I went all over the place though. It wasn't just there. I went to Kyoto, went to Osaka, up through Fuji and Izu, tons of different places. It was it was definitely a blast. It was a good time. So Newt and Shalakana and the rest of the crew over there, they were kind enough to go ahead and do a Zoom meeting with us, with me specifically hosting and talking about kaiju stuff. If you go ahead and link back to their page, it's Shalakana Takes Japan, and we had a blast just talking about Japanese cinema and kaiju and anime and everything that Japan had influenced on the West for the last 60, almost 70 years. Everything from Speed Racer to, I don't know why I say that so weird, a Speed Racer to Godzilla and everything kind of in between. So it was a really good time, and kind of kickstarted the idea of all of us doing something kind of special here. So instead of going on that tangent and being there for a while, we're going to go back to finding interesting things at the local video store. And for me, it was Galaxy. And so Galaxy Video was the first time that I ever saw anything by Ralph Bakshi. Surprisingly enough, through reruns or different showings on HBO or Showtime or Cinemax or TBS or whatever channel, I hadn't seen anything from Ralph Bakshi until I walked into Galaxy and I saw the VHS box with the poster for Wizards. So in 1977, well, actually late 75, Wizards was released in 77. Ralph Bakshi made this epic of sword and sorcery, which he had touched on and he had tackled on a little bit beforehand with some stuff that he had done with like Fire and Ice, and he had had a couple of like little helping pieces on like heavy metal. But this was a whole different story, and we're going to review it here eventually. It's actually on the list to get done for our animation section. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but those of you who know, it was incredible. But the box art specifically was this. It wasn't Frazetta style, so it wasn't like hyper realistic or hyperbolic with like the big muscles and all this. It was a plain white backdrop with this little flowered hilltop and this two-legged creature, this mount, this like mutated horse-looking thing with these glowing red eyes and these long fangs. And then on top of the mount, there was this person or humanoid thing dressed completely in red with almost an old-school 1950s little antenna, almost like kind of like Bender and his little antenna. No eyes, just this empty, vacant kind of visor-ish thing going on there. And it was lightly framed, and it just said Wizards in this big block letter. And I was floored. I had to know more about it, so I grabbed the VHS box, looked at the back of it, read the synopsis. I was sold. Not only did the cover art get me, but reading the little credit card That's the credits, the little titling that's at the bottom of everything. It had, written, directed, produced, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And then it had cast, and it gave this entire list of cast. But it had Mark Hamill in the cast. So, again, as a Star Wars nerd, during that time, I was really excited to see, to see if I could, tell it's Luke Skywalker doing something. And he had a very, very small part. He ended up being an elf king named Sean, this little cherub-like thing in a onesie that ended up getting smoked by some sort of assassin. Weird. So, getting back to Halloween and The Curse of Michael Myers and what drove me to the series, I went to Galaxy and I rented The Curse of Michael Myers. And I watched it, and it was okay. I had felt like I was a little bit of an insider, getting this new information of where the boogeyman had come from. And, with the curse stuff, with the druids and the cult thing and all that, it was interesting. And since I had no, prior conceptions of really about like what it was, it was just kind of all new to me, and it was fresh, but it felt like an origin story, even though, years later we get different origin stories and kind of better origin stories, including the actual origin story in the first film from 1978, to where, he's just a little kid that's pure evil, and he, murders his sister, and he's all whacked out, breaks out of the place, goes back home, kills more people, all that kind of stuff. So it was really interesting to go into it with that idea of what the character was and who the character was and kind of like where he came from. So I watched the movie. I went back the next day and I rented 1 through 4. So I rented Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which I was really confused on watching it, considering that it had nothing to do with Michael Myers except for a little bit part on the TV where they're showing it. And I'm like, okay, well, there's killer masks. Maybe this is a part of why the kid's bad. I don't know. I mean, I was a younger kid. I mean, whatever, is like 12 or something. Yeah, I was like 11 or 12 when I saw that kind of stuff for the first time, for the Halloween series anyway. And it wasn't until years later where I found out that Halloween was supposed to be an anthology series and that Michael Myers was just supposed to be one part of it. And then the second film was supposed to be something else, and the third and the fourth and so forth and so on, if it was going to be turned into a series that way. So then I watched 4, which was Return of Michael Myers. And that was okay. That wasn't bad. And then we're now back to Curse. And that was where I was left until the 6th one, which I'm totally blanking on right now. So it was Return was 4, Curse was 5, and I can't remember what 6 is. This is going to bother the hell out of me, so excuse me, I have to look at it. So going through all that kind of stuff and, thinking that there was more to the story than just, oh, he's just a crappy kid and he killed his sister and yada yada. Okay, excuse me. Curse was number 6. Halloween 4 was... Wait, hold on. Wait, no, is this right? No, this is wrong. This has to be wrong. This has to be wrong. Slasher, okay. Curse, previous. Revenge was 5. Okay, sorry. All right, so 4 is Return, 5 is Revenge, and then 6 is Curse. Excuse me. So again, it's been a while. I really don't watch. I really don't watch anything. I don't watch 2 all that often. I really don't watch 3. It's not that I don't like it. It's just it's nothing that really grabs me. I like the original one. I'm probably one of like 4 people on the planet that enjoys the Rob Zombie version. I really, really, really thought that it was a cool way to give a reasoning behind Michael Myers' madness, especially as a young kid. I mean, really hitting those Ed Gein and Gain, whatever the heck you want to call it, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. I mean, like that real psychotic serial killer thing of hurting small animals and being around abusive people that are not only homophobic and racist and just bigoted in general, and turning a kid into that type of monster. And we're told throughout the majority of the series that this is supposed to be the personification of pure evil, and that these are the devil's eyes and all that kind of stuff. But I think as a storyteller, John Carpenter was a lot more methodical with his approach. I think that in the annals of the back of his mind, and really, in the recesses and the corners of that that twisted brain of his, there was a lot more than just he's just a bad kid. He's just a psycho. He's just a this or that. There's something more. There's something primordial that's there. But I think that it was potentially a kind of an exposition of what can happen when good kids are put in a bad situation. I mean, we see it all the time. We see it in the news. We see it, we see it everywhere. We see this is a tale as old as time of good kids going bad because of their environment. Just like, quote unquote, bad kids being put into good environments and doing well and exceeding and excelling. That's what I think that Rob Zombie did very well. I think that the hard time of divorcing his series from the previous is just I think it's just a lot of fanboy, just nonsense, just kind of fervor of, well, it's not as good as the original because of X, Y, or Z, and why does he have to put his wife and everything? Well, that's because it's his wife. And why does he put his friends in it? Because if you had a multi-million-dollar project and you had friends that were in the business or wanted to break into it, you'd put them in there too. So, that's why you do things like that. Heck, if my neighbor wanted to be in something that I were putting together, he would be in there as hobo number 3. You put your people in there. You help people out. Without Rob Zombie, Sid Haig wouldn't have had that little bit of a resurrection in his career before, unfortunately, he did pass away. Through The Devil's Reject and House of a Thousand Corpses, which, again, I think it's a bad rep. I think House of a Thousand Corpses is a lot of fun. It's definitely a love letter to a lot of the old school slasher flicks and grindcore sorry, I'm thinking about death metal now, grindhouse style flicks. But more than anything, I mean, considering that he helped direct and he helmed most of his own music videos, it was an experimental film and it was an indie film, and he filmed it like a music video, and it was pretty damn good. Hey, buddy. This is Zero. Are you going to be an official mascot for Review Zero? Good boy. All right. So, like I was saying, all right, buddy. All right, enough of you. Go on. There you go. Okay, now he's in between my legs now. Jeez. Well, if you're gonna host, then you can host. Silly dog. Anyway, but yeah, no, it was pretty good. So like, I didn't mind the Rob Zombie stuff. The second one, not so much. As far as he's concerned, I know everybody says Devil's Rejects. I thought it was a technically good film, but there was so much there was so much off-putting stuff that it was really difficult to want to root for the bad guys. And I know that was kind of the point, to not root for them. Don't you dare think about getting on that couch. I just had that thing cleaned. No. Go to your place. Place, dog. Right there. Down. Good boy. Excuse me. It's like wrangling a production team. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it was really difficult to kind of root for the Fireflies and all that kind of stuff, and just like, you know, whatever. So it wasn't my favorite. I am probably one of the very few that enjoyed 31. I thought 31 was really cool. Lords of Salem was really cool, but it fell a little flat at the end, which kind of seems to be an ongoing theme with Zombie and all of this stuff. As far as film wise, I haven't seen the Munsters yet, and I refuse to until I can get my hands on like a black and white copy, because I heard that the color correction, or like the hyper color that they did for it, was really distracting. But we'll probably get to that one day too, because I love the Munsters. You know, the Munsters and the old school Addams Family and all that kind of stuff. Not just the Raul Julia stuff. We're talking about like John Huston style stuff. It was really good. And I have a soft spot for Herman Munster, because he was in one of my favorite horror films of all time, which was Pet Sematary. As Judd, you know, the ground went sour. You know, Lewis, you shouldn't go up there. Sometimes dead is better. I don't know what that was, but deal with it. So I watched all the Halloweens, and they were good. They were fun, but I did end up falling in love with the first one, and because of that, I stuck with the series. I saw Halloween H2O and Resurrection when they came out, and they was really cool seeing H2O, seeing Jamie Lee Curtis back and kicking ass, and it still being an absolute smoke show, because, you know, her career was, you know, way more than solid, between Trading Places and True Lies, and I mean, just basically anything that she's in, I'm typically a fan of. I mean, just hot mom vibes. And then when she was younger, whew. Good stuff. She was 21, so this is okay. Gross. Gross internet stuff. Gross. So, Halloween actually does have a very, very special place in my heart and in my family's heart. Now, my kids, yes, I do have kids. I have two. I have two. Well, I have one teenage kid, and then I have one adult kid, which is crazy. I know. But Race, you look so young. Yeah, I know. I've got an adult kid. It's crazy. When they were younger, they were always asking, you know, what kind of scary movies can we watch? What kind of interesting stories can you put in front of us? Yada yada. So, you know, a lot of the, you know, 70s stuff is pretty tame by today's standards. The gore and the glamour and the glitz and the kills and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't as crazy as it was now. So anyway, production folk doing production folk things. So it wasn't as crazy as it was now. So I mean, my kids grew up watching, you know, pretty, yeah, like most of the, like, PG-13 stuff. Even though most of these, you know, movies were, you know, like R-rated, it was a real soft R. It was like a hard PG. So, you know, they did Alien and Predator and all this, and then, you know, some of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, and then when each one of them, you know, hit around, you know, 10, 11, 12, then they started diving in a little bit deeper, and Halloween was one of the standouts because it humanized the idea of the monster in the closet. It humanized the idea of the boogeyman, of it's not this unknown thing or being, it's just a guy in a mask, And for the first movie, even though it is left on the cliffhanger to where Michael disappears and runs off, obviously, because you can't kill the boogeyman. You actually can, because it's just a dude in a mask. Go ahead, the dude comes out of the closet and you're rolling somewhere, light him up. Which is really something fun that they explored a lot more with the. You'll have to excuse me. It's like 1 a.m. here. I've been filming and doing stuff since probably about 5:30 this morning. So it's been a long one. I'm kind of fried, but show must go on. Hey, will you knock it off, please? Dude, I can hear you licking. I can hear you licking over the camera. Well, don't look at me that way. Ridiculous. So the kids watched it. They liked it. They enjoyed it. And this year, it's 2023 now. So October 2022. We were setting up for our Halloween party that we were having. We were having, the friends and family over for, just whatever celebration. So we did up the front yard in this cool decorative thing. If any of you guys want to see it, just go ahead and, sound off in the comments and I'll put some links up. But specifically, there was one night about 3 or 4 days before the actual party itself, because we had the party on the 28th. So it was about 2 or 3 days before that. And I've got the front yard all done up. I've got the smoke machine, the skeletons, the lights, the crazy, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going over my sound check with, all the weird little automation stuff. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to inherit some really cool theater effects and props and things like that. So, put them out in the front yard. I mean, hell, nobody else on the street's doing it. Might as well be that family, right? So we do that, and it's about 3 or 4 in the morning when I'm doing this. And I'm outside, and I'm trying to film just a little snippet of like something spooky and creepy and whatever. And meanwhile, I'm setting up all this stuff. I was also putting together my costume since Halloween Ends came out this October, or this past October, or whatever. I was like, hey, let's do Michael Myers. Like, I haven't dressed up as Michael Myers since, heck, I think maybe October of 95. So I thought it would be something fun. Which, funny enough, on Halloween, and we got trick-or-treaters, this whole family pulled up, opened up the door of the van, and all of these kids, and we're talking about like little kids, anywhere from ages like 3 to about 9, file out, and they are all dressed as these slashers, like Ghostface, Jason, Freddy, and there was the tiniest little Michael Myers. I mean, the kid couldn't have been more than about 4 years old, but he had like the whole mask and everything. We've got a picture of me up and doing the thing and the head tilt, and made the kid do it, and it was a fun time. So backtrack to that couple days where I'm setting everything up, and I was working on my mask. So I was filming this like little thing on my cell phone to send to my friends and whoever, saying like, ooh, like how cool is this? And ooh, here's some spooky stuff for you. So I filmed my mask outside in the dark. And I had put just kind of an ambient light around it to light up, and I was going to overlay some of the theme music. And the second I did that, out in the distance is this blood-curdling scream. This is like 3:34 in the morning, right? So this blood-curdling scream. Excuse me? What the hell is happening here? It's like the second that I lit the mask up to show it on film, it was like the evil escaped the mask, and I hear this scream, and then I continue listening. And it sounds something straight out of a real horror movie, and I'm not one to get nervous about most things, but there was there was definitely a little bit of a pucker factor just because of how out of place it was. If anybody wants to see the video or whatever, just go ahead and comment, and I'll throw I'll throw it up here. You know what? Actually, I'll just go ahead and do it anyway, just because it's fun and it's silly. So so yeah, there we go. I mean, what the hell? Obviously, for any of you who are in the Southwest or just anywhere where there might be some wildlife, you know that it was a pack of coyotes hunting something. Every now and again, they'll corner some smaller mountain lion like cubs or whatever. So that's what I think that initial first like howl and scream and yelp was them pissing something else off, and then they started chattering and hooting and hollering and all this, but it was still creepy nonetheless. So that's a nice little Halloween memory that we had around here. It's definitely never boring around here. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and thank you all once again for listening to me prattle on about a whole lot of nonsense that really has nothing to do with our review. But hey, I like hanging out with you guys, and all of us over here at Review Zero appreciate the living hell out of every single person who tunes in. I mean, we're just like you. We just want to hang out with, just hang out with our friends. Have a couple of drinks, have a couple of laughs, and just keep it easy. So, you guys take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.